you.
Or the date is the 29th.
You insist.
Happy leap year, everyone, or leap day.
We'll keep the door open, I think, for a while, all right? Okay. All right. You know what? Better put it.
We'll get started as soon as I'm just going to give a minute or two for, looks like there are a lot of people just entering right now. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first quarter 2024 Governor's Workforce Council meeting. I'd like to welcome our council members, as well as our many community, government, and business partners for today's meeting. I'd also like to welcome their 7 new Governor's Workforce Council members today from industry, government, and education. So welcome all. A quick reminder on how to best participate in this meeting. We are going to be monitoring the chat line for comments. And as discussion periods happen, you're also welcome to use the raise hand or chat line. The breakout sessions, which will happen in the second hour, will be much more free-flowing discussions where you'll pick kind of one of the 5 breakouts to participate in. Today's meeting is focusing on the state's workforce strategy. And to that end, we're going to be reviewing 2 of the required plans that we have to put together. One is required by the federal government, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA Unified State Plan, is a 4-year plan that the federal government requires from each state. We will be reviewing it today and voting on it. And second, the governor's strategic workforce plan will be discussed today in our breakout sessions. You'll remember that we introduced this plan last July, and we've been making considerable progress since then, with great thanks to many members of the Governor's Workforce Council, government agencies, workforce development boards, and other key stakeholders. Today, we will not vote on the Governor's Strategic Workforce Plan, but rather vote on doing an e-vote when the plan is completed at the end of March. That's why your input and feedback in today's breakout sessions is really important. Your feedback will help inform the plan and make sure we're highlighting the most critical aspects of workforce development now and in the future. Following some housekeeping items and votes, we will hear from Governor Lamont, who will share his perspectives on our workforce development activities. Then our Workforce Commissioner, Kelly Valeries, will lead the review and discussion of the WIOA plan, leading to a vote on it. Following these items, I'll introduce the Governor's Strategic Workforce Plan, and then our GWC committee chairs will lead the discussions in the breakout sessions. You'll be welcome to attend any of the breakout sessions. After the breakout sessions, each group will come back and report out to the larger groups so that everybody can benefit from the work of these breakout sessions. So first, now turning to general business, I'm going to be doing a roll call of council members or their designees. So if you are a designee or part of an organization that you're representing the kind of leader, you're going to be, please kind of, vote on these 2 items. One is approval of the minutes, and the second is approval to conduct an e-vote in April to approve the governor's workforce strategic plan. I will call on each council member and ask for your votes. So for example, you can say yes on the minutes and yes on conducting an e-vote if you approve of both of these items. And later on in the meeting, we'll have a separate vote on approving the WIOA plan. So I'm going to get started now with the roll call. It's alphabetical order by first name. Commissioner Amy Porter.
Yes to both.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anthony Medici or designee Valerie Finardi.
Yes to both. This is
Mark?
Anthony.
Yes.
Just real quick, I'm so sorry, everyone. I do need I need someone to sorry, first and second.
Yeah, we have to do the motions. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Will somebody give a motion to approve the minutes?
This is Amy Porter. Since I've already voted, I'll start with a motion to
And
to
would
vote
somebody
on.
second it?
Cindy Bigelow, I
Second.
second it.
Thank you, Cindy. And then for conducting a vote to e-vote on the governor's strategic plan, can we have a motion on that?
So moved.
This is second by Michelle James. Michelle James.
And second?
Michelle James.
Okay. Okay. So I'll go back to the roll call. Next, Brian Doubles or George Anderson from Synchrony.
Hi, Mark. George Anderson here. Yes to both.
Thank you, George. Commissioner Russell Tucker or Keith Norton or Charles Hughes.
Commissioner Russell Tucker here, thank you, and yes to both.
Thank you, Commissioner. Christy Pentima or Mark Soicher from CBIA?
Mark Stoicher, yes to both, although I'm retired from CBIA, but still very much aligned with the organization.
Thank you, Mark. Cindy Bigelow?
Cindy Bigelow here, yes to both.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Keefe from DCD or Paul Robertson? Commissioner Bartolomeo or Mark Pizzello, Erica Tew, or Patrick Flaherty?
This is Dante Bartolomeo. Mark will vote on the minutes since he was there for me. Mark?
Yep. Yay to both.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Ed Hawthorne? Erica Smith? Gregory Ugauda?
Ugaldi, and yes
Yep.
to both.
Thank you. Heron Gaston? Jay Williams? Jeff Walker?
Yes to both.
Thank you, Jeff. Dr. Jeff Flax? Dr. John Murphy? Joseph Gianni or Bill Tommins?
It's Joe Gianni, Mark. Good afternoon. Yes to minutes, yes to e-vote.
Thank you, Joe. President Judy Olian or Bethany Zemba? Kathleen Szilard or Sal Mancino or Ellen Komar? Kelly Valeries?
Present, yes to both.
Harry Hohen? Dr. Leslie Torres Rodriguez?
Liliana Cuevas, filling in for her, yes to both.
Thank you. Leticia Colon de Mejas or Lillian Bro?
Yes, Lillian Bruff, yes to both.
Okay. Maggie Hulse or Jack Mahoney?
Jack Mahoney here for Maggie Holes, yes to both.
Thank you, Jack. Myself, Mark Argosh, I'm voting yes to both. Marty Guay?
Yes and yes, Mark.
Thank you. Melissa Turner or Kyle Ballou?
Mark, it's Kyle has joined. I'm Melissa Turner, and this is my first meeting, so I don't know that I should be voting at this point.
Okay.
We'll register you as abstaining.
Thank you. Thanks.
No problem.
But welcome to the GWC, Melissa.
Thank you so much.
Michelle James?
Present and yes to both.
Thank you, Michelle. Molly Kellogg? Dr. Minette Ferguson?
Present and yes to both.
Thank you. Nicotula Menunos? Paul Costello? Paul Pemeriuski?
Yes to both.
Thank you. Peter Nystrom or I think, is there a new designee, Laura, on that?
I don't believe so. He's not
Okay.
present.
Peter Salve or Richard Jacob?
This is Peter Salve, yes to both.
Thank you, Peter. Radenka Marik or Gladys Kersaint?
Radenka, yes to both.
Thank you, Radenka. Ray Pinault?
Ray Pino, yes to both.
Thank you. Rebecca Rose?
Yes to both, especially because you did provide the minutes in advance. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Rohan Freeman? Dr. Sal Menzo?
Yes to both.
Thank you, Sal. Shane Eddy or Peter Holland?
Yeah, hi, Mark. Peter Holland, yes to both.
Thank you, Peter. Sharon Barr? Sean Coyne?
Yes to both.
Thank you, Sean. Welcome to the council. Shihu Muhammad? Shelley Davis?
Good afternoon, Mark. Yes to both.
Thank you, Shelley. Steve Sullivan or Jonathan Harris?
Steve Sullivan's on and yes to both, Mark.
Thank you. Neil Jorkman for Suresh Swami?
Yes to both.
Thank you. Terrence Chang or Rai Kathiria?
Terrence is here. Yes to both.
Thank you, Terrence. Tiana Ocasio?
Hi, Mark. Yes to both.
Thank you. Rep. Tony Walker? Taiwanda Tally Rushing?
Yes to both.
Thank you. And Wes Alexander?
Afternoon, Mark. Yes to both.
Thank you, Wes. Okay, we've completed and both resolutions pass. Is the governor here?
Hey, Mark.
It's my great honor to introduce Governor Ned Lamont.
That's it? Anyway, hey, Mark, thank you for everything you do, and Kelly, and just listening to the fact that you're all here and engaged. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I know how important your time is. I know you're thinking about, the strategic plan and where we are going forward. I'll just share a couple of my thoughts with you because they continue to evolve. Early on, that first, year or two, I just figured this was a state that hadn't added a new job in many, many years. And I wanted to do everything I could to help recruit businesses and help businesses grow here in the state and give them the confidence this is a place they want. And I thought one of the most important things, go with our strength, go with our asset. We have one of the best workforces in the world. And I just figured the Workforce Council would help bring that about. In terms of training for the jobs that are out there, working very closely with the business community to make sure we're training for the jobs, that are out there. It was a little bit of a shift in terms of our economic development strategy, because in the years past, we had generally said, here's $10 million, please move to Connecticut. And that was not that successful a strategy. Let's play to our strengths. And I thought workforce was our strength. And if we could, work with Mark and Kelly and each and every one of you, we'd do a better job of making sure we have the right match between business and workforce. Then, during COVID, we ended up having some incredible supply issues, not just on the material side, but also in terms of people, where we had real shortages of everything from, nurses and daycare, teachers across the board in state government, not-for-profits, as well as the private sector. So I felt, solely with the regional sector partnerships, a real need to make sure we better align to fill those needs, such as they were, and do that on a prompt basis. And I think we've done a pretty good job. Most of those labor shortages are easing. I think some of you may have a point of view on that, but that's certainly, the sense I get. The outstanding unfilled jobs in the state, we had maybe 100,000 unfilled jobs a a year or so ago. That's down to about 80,000, which is still a lot, but it gives you an idea of how the market is modulating a bit and how important it is that we train people for the jobs that are out there again. And I got together with, Kelly and Terrence and Garrett Rand and Dante Bartolomeo the other day, just thinking about our strategy going forward. And one of the things we focused on a lot is not just cross-sector in terms of industries, but also within state government, and how we have to do a better job of aligning all of the different ways we can work together. We taught, for example, we have advanced CTs. You maybe know advanced CT, is ways the business community, gathers. They act as our eyes and ears in terms of companies that may want to come to the state of Connecticut, and they're our best emissaries, and make sure they're closely aligned in terms of workforce and our strategy going forward. And, we think about other groups within the state government that can be helpful. We have something called the Department of Social Services, DSS service centers. And usually people go in there and get SNAP benefits, which is the band formerly known as food stamps, or maybe they get some housing assistance. And we're setting up our first DSS center where it not only provides those lifelines, but it also provides workforce opportunities, and make sure that these folks, whether they're renewing their Medicaid or whatever it might be, also know this is a place you can go. Tell us the type of jobs you need. Tell us what you're interested in. We can tell you what the opportunities are there and provide you the training you need. Terrence was there on behalf of, in particular, the community colleges. What we can do to make sure that those programs are closely aligned with the needs of the employers. The employers are actively involved in helping us design and grow the programs we need as you build out from there. That's important in terms of the Board of Regents. I think I see, Charlene here, Charlene Russell Tucker, who runs education for the state. What we're trying to do in terms of getting employers into our schools, our high schools, and even earlier, and make sure young people have a better idea of what the opportunities they are, make their education real in a sense that I'm studying towards a certain purpose. And maybe there's some internship programs along the way. And as I tell, the business folks, talk to these people while they're young. Talk to them while they're thinking about where they want their education to go and why they want their education to go there. And if they get a taste of what insurance or manufacturing or nursing might be at an early age, they're more likely to stick, they're more likely to stay. Dante over in labor does similar in terms of apprenticeship programs, and maybe that's for kids in colleges, but get them involved earlier. And we're trying to do a lot more of earning while you learn. It makes education less expensive, makes that segue to the private sector or your next job a lot easier. And one of the things we have found is get them while it's still here in Connecticut. The very best and the brightest from around the world come to Connecticut for a university. We have one of the great education systems in the world. A lot of them leave as a relatively small state, and more of them are beginning to stay. More of our graduates are staying than ever before. But part of workforce is making sure those students, while they're still at, say, college or community college, have a much better idea of what those opportunities are here in the state of Connecticut. I try and align that with our fiscal policies. For example, kids are graduating with an awful lot of debt right now. And, President Biden, bless his soul, is forgiving debt as best he can. We have a little different strategy in Connecticut, which is you hire a graduate of a Connecticut college, and we'll give you a 25% tax credit for every, as you start to pay down their debt. And we're trying to do that with our employers for daycare and childcare as well, making it easier to hire. So we train the people for the jobs that are out there and make it easier for them to go to school, train for the jobs that are out there, take a job here in Connecticut, and there's some benefits to doing that. And I haven't had a chance to read, Kelly's strategic analysis. I know you'll be talking about that a lot today, but those are some of the highlights that are important to me. And I just want to say again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I mean, it's amazing the quality of the people I see on this big screen. You're still there for these meetings. It's important to me, and I really appreciate the fact that it's important to each and every one of you. And with that, Mark, I'll sign off and just listen in for a while unless there are any questions.
Any questions for the governor? Governor, I just want to kind of say how important your leadership is and has been on moving the state forward here in terms of workforce and economic development. It's amazing kind of the progress that's being made in terms of bringing all of these diverse stakeholders here, government, industry, nonprofit and civic leaders around really trying to expand opportunities for people and really meet the workforce needs of our industry. So thank you for your continuing leadership on this and making all this possible.
And we need you guys to keep tying everything together so we're all rowing in the same direction. That's just what you and Kelly are doing. Hey, thanks, everybody. It's great to see you all. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you, Governor. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Kelly Valeries, our Chief Workforce Officer, to both talk about, provide a little bit of a report in terms of activities, but also to lead the discussion regarding the WIOA plan that I've referenced earlier. Kelly?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your time in attending this important meeting today. As been mentioned, I have a few fun announcements, and then we're going to dig into the WIOA Unified State Plan. So first, I want to remind everyone that our next second annual Workforce Summit is coming up on April 16th. And this will be held at the AquaTurf. As you can see, we have a lot of co-sponsors of this great event. Last year, we held a sold-out crowd of about 420 people. We expect the same this year. And this year, we're really going to be focusing on how we can discover the hidden talent that is in Connecticut. Once we can get hidden talent back into the workforce, we'll start to see some of those open jobs get filled. So please join us for a really engaging day at the AquaTurf on April 16th. Secondly, I'd like to share with you the great work that's happening in Connecticut across our workforce ecosystem is being noticed on a national basis. And with that, the National Governors Association has asked us to host their summer symposium. And this is a 4-day event that brings workforce board chairs across the country to a particular destination to highlight the work that's being done within a state. So we're very excited to be hosting this year. It will be one of the last 2 weeks of September. We're nailing that down now, depending on availability of space. And we are targeting the Mystic area to be the area where we'll be hosting this meeting. And we're looking forward to inviting some of you to this meeting as we highlight the work that's happening in Connecticut on workforce development. And so from there, we'll dive right into the WIOA plan. So as we mentioned, there's 2 plans that we're going to be talking about today. And I want to spend a little bit of time just explaining the difference between the 2 plans. So the WIOA State Unified Plan is a required document by the Federal Department of Labor. And this outlines under the very comprehensive WIOA federal statute that establishes the state's workforce development system to be very compliant document on what activities we're doing and how we are planning out those activities and how we're collecting data in compliance. And I'll get into a little bit more detail about that in a moment. Separately, the governor's workforce strategic plan is a document that goes a little beyond what is required for WIOA legislation and is a little more comprehensive based on the needs of our state. It does include the WIOA compliant components of the governor's workforce plan is included in the WIOA plan as the foundation of our strategy. But again, the WIOA plan goes a little deeper with regards to how that is implemented. So today we're going to be talking about both of them. So the next slide, please. The state plan is submitted every 4 years, and it includes the 6 core WIOA programs, and we'll go through each of those in a moment. And it also includes strategic planning elements as well as very detailed operational planning elements. And that is why that plan ends up being about 300 pages long versus our more compact state governor's plan. There is compliance around when this plan is established and posted, and a public comment period. So we did post the plan on February 28th, just yesterday. And it will be, we're going to leave that open. This is a living document. So although we have to upload it to US Department of Labor by March 4th, we can make changes and updates to that document in real time. It is a 4-year document that has a 2-year update to it. So again, a very compliance document. So if we go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about what the plan includes. And at this point, I really want to take the opportunity to thank our commissioners that helped put this plan in place. This requires an organized, coordinated effort with the Department of Education. So thank you to Commissioner Russell Tucker and her team with the Department of Labor. So thank you to Commissioner Bartomatello and her team, to ADS for Commissioner Amy Porter and her team. I also want to call out a special thank you to Patrick Flaherty from the Department of Labor and the Office of Research for all the work you did on the foundational analysis of what this plan is based on, and then also to Karen Quisnell of OWS for your work in pulling this all together and organizing the document. So the Unified State Plan does communicate our state's vision for workforce. It is foundationally based on the economic and workforce development activities that are provided in a detailed analysis by the Department of Labor, and it aligns with our state strategic plan. Again, as I mentioned, there's very detailed operational information with this plan, as well as each of the core partners that I mentioned just a moment ago. Each have their own core sections within the plan that also includes their strategic and operational plans. So if we go to the next slide, we'll take a look at the different sections of the plan. So WIOA is 5 titles where we focus strategically on 4 of them. So the first title is Adult Dislocated Worker and Youth Employment and Training Programs. Funding flows through for all of these to Department of Labor and then to those partners, as you see here, the other departments. The Title I workforce development activities really authorize the job training and related services to unemployed or underemployed individuals. And it also establishes a guidance and performance and accountability for the WIOA system. Title II is focused on adult education and family literacy. And this title lives at the Department of Education and really helps adults without a high school diploma or equivalent providing them education and skill development to obtain their diplomas or make progress too. It also supports English as a second language learners. And then we have the Wagner-Peiser Title III. And this is Wagner-Peiser establishes the universal accessible job search assistance services. So what is included at the AJCs for things like resume writing, interviewing skills, job searches, and all of the other resources, rich resources that live within the American Job Centers. This title authorizes that work as well as rapid response and some other detailed compliance areas within that. And then we have Title IV, which lives at the Department of Aging and Disability Services, led by Commissioner Porter. And these activities provide employment and independent living assistance for people with disabilities. I have put in the link here at the top here, a link to the 300-page document. And anyone who is interested in any more of the detailed components of this plan are welcome to read them, provide public comment or comments back to the GWC email address. As I said, even though we're going to vote on this document today, we are accepting updates and revisions and feedback ongoing. So at this point in time, I believe that we would like to open this up with a motion to accept and post the WIOA Unified State Plan.
So Rebecca Rose, I move to accept the plan as currently written to be posted as well.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Tiana Ocasio, second.
Thank you. And is there any discussion, any questions anyone has? Excellent.
I'm sorry, Kelly, this is Amy Porter. So are we voting? I guess, what are we voting for? Because we haven't seen the plan at this point. So I guess maybe some clarification on what the group is actually voting on.
The group is voting to upload the document on March 4th at the required deadline to post the WIOA plan. And at any time between now then or thereafter, we can make revisions and updates to the plan.
And what's the process for making revisions? So if there's a vote today and we vote to post it, but people have an opportunity to review and see things that need to be changed or clarified, what's the process for that?
The process would be identifying those areas and reaching out to either my email or the GWC email. And then we will review the requested revisions and then make a determination whether those revisions will get uploaded or not. And obviously, Commissioner Porter, being that you own one of those titles, we will most definitely be uploading and making any revisions to your plan or any other parts of the plan that you would like clarified or additions to.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Kelly, it's Marty. Is it possible to send out the document that is going to be posted to everyone's email instead of us trying to find it online?
Absolutely. There's a link in this document. There's also a link to it in email that went out earlier today, and we can definitely put the link in the chat here for everyone to be able to access.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments? Excellent. So this vote is for the council members or their designees And so since we took roll call, we'll be able to do a yay or nay vote. Am I correct on that, Laura? Okay. All those in favor of posting the WIOA Unified State Plan, please, all yays?
Yay.
Yay.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your working through this compliance document with us. And again, thank you very much to all of our state agency partners for the heavy lift to get this over the finish line. So
Kelly,
at
thank you
this,
so much. Thank you so much for leading that and for all the great work you do is in coordinating and leading our workforce efforts in Connecticut. I now have the privilege of kind of introducing this next topic, which is going to lead to, a set of breakout groups. As you remember, and as I mentioned earlier, well, I actually didn't mention this earlier, we approved the first governor's workforce strategic plan, as most of you know, in October 2020. That plan was ambitious in scope, for sure, and outlined 19 specific recommendations in different areas. It was very collaborative. It called for a collaborative approach among educators, employers, labor, government, legislators, and nonprofits to build a workforce system that ensured that all residents have full access to meaningful career pathways and high quality jobs while enabling businesses and employers to have access to a skilled workforce. We've made significant progress against that plan. We took a look at the 19 recommendations and we either accomplished or made significant progress, I would say, against 14 of the 19 recommendation areas. A few highlights. One is sector-based training. Our efforts in sector-based training through programs like Career Connect, Good Jobs Challenge, Connecticut Health Horizons, Tech Accelerators are showing great promise, so much so that our work in this area is becoming a model for the country, which is one of the reasons why we're hosting the National Governors Association. That is kind of our work in short-term training combined with supportive services we've learned can upskill diverse talent quickly to meet the immediate workforce needs of employers. Another area that we focused on hard is we have developed 14 regional sector partnerships around the state that have provided really the framework that brings the business community together to collaborate, on common issues on how to skill and upskill talent. And there are over 400 businesses involved in those regional sector partnerships. And that work has been key to Connecticut getting the largest grant for the Good Jobs Challenge in the country. We're very excited about putting all that to work. We've also made progress in a lot of other specific areas, like promoting skills-based hiring, retaining college graduates in Connecticut, increasing FAFSA and making college enrollment easier, addressing barriers to employment through efforts like the Blue Ribbon Panel on childcare, and important work going on in transportation, benefit cliffs, and behavioral health. We've also seen some progress in our data infrastructure and providing easier access to job seekers through our new jobs.ct.gov website and the Career Connect portal. As we update our strategic plan, we're going to do so in the current environment, which means that our economy is growing. We know that nothing will return to the way it was, but we see this as an opportunity to build back better post-COVID, acting with intention to address the inequities that exist within our economy and society. Our new plan, like the current one, will be ambitious in scope and collaborative in approach. However, we're going to move away from very prescriptive goals against a set of activities and move more toward key levers for change that will affect systemic outcomes. You'll recall back in July that we envisioned our workforce strategy through the metaphor of a house. But now we refined that and adopted, Laura, if you'd move the slide forward, the metaphor of a key. With foundational to our strategy, as you can see at the left side of this picture, are data and DEI&A. With respect to data, we are committed to outcomes, ensuring that every investment we make in the state workforce system is informed by data and is outcomes-based. DEI&A also is foundational to our efforts and integral to every effort we undertake. We're committed to creating a more inclusive economy that ensures that every individual, regardless of where they are on their personal journeys, has a seamless and supported pathway from education and training to a good job that enables them to contribute to the economic and civic life of the state. Our blueprint has 3 strategic pillars that are integrated and intentionally ordered from left to right, starting with education and career pathways, sector training, and business leadership. Career pathways is defined as our early childhood education, K-12, and higher education system that is directly connected to employment. An important aspect is to ensure that business participation in educational program design and development and in providing work-based learning opportunities that build the academic, technical, and professional skills that young people need to succeed in career and life. As Governor Lamont said earlier, we need to get youth started a lot earlier. Sector training is a short-term education and training effort tied directly to the skill needs of industries, informed by the training and serving as direct pipeline for jobs. Industry leadership is fundamental because quality workforce development has to be demand-driven. It requires industry participation to develop future talent and also help to remove barriers to employment. Ultimately, these pillars, undergirded by data and DEI&A, ladder up to the overall workforce development system. We're building an ecosystem of key stakeholders across business, education, government, and community-based organizations to strengthen the workforce development system. Each stakeholder, based on their specific role and expertise, is tasked with driving forward a key set of responsibilities in this effort. And together and under Kelly Valeries' leadership, in collaboration with the commissioners of all of our sister agencies, we're building a more coordinated, cohesive, and coherent workforce development system that challenges all stakeholders to advance their individual goals while also benefiting the collective good. And this also extends, obviously, in regions with the leadership of each of the regional workforce boards. In such a system, programs are linked and built on one another, amplifying impact and deepening our knowledge of what works for specific industries, populations, and the systems at a whole. We're going to ask you today to self-select into one of the 5 pillars for a breakout session. But before we do that, I'm going to take you briefly through each of these 5 pillars in a little bit more detail. And in each case, I'm going to talk a little bit about the context, the future state that we're working toward, and discussion about this type of goals that we're working toward, which do need to be more fleshed out in these discussions today. So first, starting with DEI&A, the context here is the importance of expanding the talent pool with a focus on equity. We're not going to fill the 80,000 open jobs without expanding the talent pipeline and without removing barriers to employment. Our future state is a workforce that reflects the diversity of the state's population, meets the needs of the economy, and provides equitable access to high-quality jobs. So what have we been doing? The DEI&A committee, under the leadership of Jay Williams and Wes Alexander, and with the support of Anthony Barrett, have done really great work in developing action plans supported by several subcommittees with great leaders as well to support the reentry population, the BIPOC population, youth, veterans, and people with disabilities. And you'll also see women and immigrants and refugees in our plan. Just to give a quick example, for the reentry population, the DEI&A committee is working on an employer toolkit, while the Department of Corrections is leading an initiative called Vocational Villages, and Career Connect is supporting a statewide initiative to train and employ the reentry population led by a nonprofit, Career Resources, who recently did a report showing that individuals from reentry who receive skills-based training have a 25% increase in employment. Now, obviously, I could go into detail on each one of these groups. Don't have time right now, but there's been really deep work. In addition, there are some key initiatives in DEI&A cutting across these populations, including work on benefit cliffs, the Blue Ribbon Panel on childcare and early childhood education, which happened over this past year and submitted a plan to the governor and legislature, the Career Accelerator work, the work in transportation, the work in adult basic education, and jobs.ct.gov. Next, I'd like to talk about the data pillar. The context here is it's very important to manage and organize data so we can know how we're doing, so we can enable analysis of our workforce investments and outcomes, and ensure the efforts are addressing equity, and highlight effective programs and strategies that we can bring to fuller scale. Our future state is to develop a single system for data collection across all workforce development programs across the state. And the good news there, by the way, is the Office of Workforce Strategy, working with the Department of Labor and OPM, have received a philanthropic grant from the Connecticut Project to, in fact, work on this unified data system, which is really exciting. And over the last several years, we've seen big progress in data and outcomes on analyzing programmatic outcomes, on our longitudinal data system, P20 WINS, and increasing access of job seekers to the workforce system through the jobs.ct.gov website that just went live a couple months ago, and the Career Connect portal, which over 15,000 people have registered for. Now let's turn to education and career pathways. The context here is preparing all students for careers and post-secondary education opportunities. Our future state is for all students to have exposure and access to career pathways, regardless of their post-secondary education plans, for every student to envision themselves in their future careers and have a roadmap of getting there and the resources to support them. And for industry to be active partners with educators to inform curriculum development, provide faculty externships, and provide students with robust work-based learning. So what's happening here? A lot of focus on dual and concurrent enrollment, both from the K-12 system with the leadership of Commissioner Russell Parker, with our college systems with the leadership of the CSCU and Chancellor Chang, President Maduco. The Youth Manufacturing Pipeline Initiative is another good example. The Youth Health Pipeline Initiative, a lot of work on increasing access to higher education through FAFSA work led by the State Department of Education, and the automatic admissions programs, which colleges have partnered in, as well as Connecticut Health Horizons. So a lot of work going on. From a goal standpoint, we're going to be looking to set goals on, the percentage of 11th and 12th graders who receive dual credits or pass an AP or IB exam or an industry recognized credential. We have that at about 60%. 70% of students from low-income families enrolling in post-secondary programs of different types. And then also looking at the percentage of students who are college and career ready, the percentage of school districts that have workforce-aligned career pathways and have a comprehensive repository of industry recognized credentials. So I know that's a lot, and that's going to be a major area of focus going forward, I would say, in the plan is career education, career pathways. Next slide, sector-based training. We've talked a lot about that, so I'm not going to dwell as much on that. I would say, the work to date in that is Career Connect, Good Jobs Challenge, Tech Talent Accelerator, registered apprenticeships. And moving forward, our plans are to train and place 6,000 people through Career Connect, 2,000 people through the Good Jobs Challenge, and many others through some of these other programs, as well as to develop a plan for sustainable funding for sector training, and to also build credential pathways so that people can continue to advance in their careers and build stackable credentials. Now to industry leader, and one other thing, also expanding registered apprenticeships across the state, across multiple industries. Now turning to industry leadership. This is the part of the plan that really focuses on employer engagement. The context is that 81% of employers are experiencing difficulty finding and retaining workers. Our future state is every job is a good job. All companies hire for skills, not just degrees. And there's a real partnership between our educational systems and employers working to prepare future talent. The work to date has been in a number of areas, including the regional sector partnerships. A new thing you're going to be hearing about called the STARS Public Sector Hub, focusing exactly on people without traditional degrees. The credential registry work on skills-based hiring that a number of companies are involved in, and college student retention efforts like Campus CT that Advanced CT has been leading. Moving forward, some of the goals that we're looking at are to have a 25% increase in the number of companies participating in the regional sector partnerships, increase 25% increase in state agencies participating in the regional sector partnerships, 100% of employers participating in skills-based hiring, and you can see the other objectives there as well. And one of the things that we're going to be looking for these breakout groups to do is to get into the goals and what should be kind of the focuses here. So now I'm going to ask every person here to self-select into one of the 5 breakout groups, and we'll be doing these breakout sessions and then coming back to do 3-minute report outs from each of the 5 breakout sessions. So Laura, is there a way for everybody to access these?
Absolutely. So everyone, all the rooms have been opened up, so you can go ahead and join either through, there's sometimes an ellipsis at the bottom. It kind of depends on whether you're on your phone or on your computer. Anyone who's having issue getting in, just hang tight, let the masses go, and then I'll take care of you.
And we'll be going, I think, Laura, to what, about 4 o'clock in these sessions?
Yes.
Okay. Great.
We're about 5 minutes behind schedule, which is not bad. So we can go till 4 o'clock on the dot.
Okay, great. See you in the breakout sessions. Laura, is everybody back out?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So we have time for, I would say, kind of 3 to 4 minute kind of report outs from each of the 5 committees. So I'm just going to call on them. First, call out to kind of industry leadership. Marty?
Yep.
Jack?
Yep. I'll take the first part of it and maybe ask Jack to jump in also. We had one of the big levers or drivers of industry leadership are the forums that we create, which are the regional sector partnerships. And we have a whole lot of them, and there's a couple more coming. But the group felt that we needed more scale, more involvement, more companies. Tim Larson, Commissioner Larson made a great point about including, occupational schools and jobs. Again, getting to our highest values, how do we get more participation? So We feel that we got to get more employers. There is always a tension between the really, really large ones who may want to take jobs from the smaller companies, which makes this effort all the more important to scale a larger workforce that everyone has access to, no matter what size of the company. We had a discussion too. I don't know if you want to talk, Jack, around the jobs and the definitions and the hows that Leah had brought up.
Yeah, sure. So it was great discussion about the definition of what a good job is, and everyone agreed that sort of the four categories of compensation, agency and culture, structure, and advancement were sort of right in line with what we think a good job means. I think everyone was struggling to make the leap from definition to practice, and how do we make sure that companies are actually leveraging the definition and what KPIs they're looking at to see if they're actually following along. And I think it's something very similar as it relates to skills-based hiring. How are we making sure that companies are focused on skills and not degrees in order to manage their hiring practices? So very good discussion. We didn't get to an answer, but I know we can follow up and dig into that.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Marty and Jack. Next, we're going to go to education and career pathways, and I think that's Commissioner Russell Tucker, Chancellor Chang, Jeff Walker.
Thanks, Mark. So I'll start, and the group will correct me if I got anything wrong. But I think it was a vigorous discussion. A lot of folks chimed in, and ultimately, I think it kind of, looking at my notes, it breaks down into three primary areas we were trying to unpack. Right, first is funding. We have to be very explicit, thoughtful, intentional about how this kind of work needs to be funded, not just selfishly from a kind of CSCU or higher education perspective, but SDE needs funding, right? And our nonprofits need funding. And I mean, this is not work that can just happen on kind of existing budgets. And so I think this gives us an opportunity to articulate and sharpen and detail that work for potential investment case. I don't think any of us in the group had any concerns about the content, right? The structure, the pillars, so to speak, within the pillar. All of that made sense. So the other category we talked about was a kind of like don't forget category, right? Breaking away from the thinking around education as this very kind of traditional K-12 into higher ed, into the workforce continuum, because it just doesn't work that way anymore, and it's going to continue to shift. So we talked about the need to make sure that adult and continuing education learners are involved, included, right? Build as big a tent as possible. CTEC, SDE, they are serving students from a multitude of backgrounds. There are literally, tens of thousands, if not more, of justice impacted individuals that are going to be really important and valuable to the workforce, but we got to do right by them, right? Whether they are currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, we have to do a better job. There are wonderful folks who want to not everyone wants to go to college, right? How do we make sure that the folks who want to be in the quote unquote trades, right? Some of those industries are getting what they need. And one of the last items in the don't forget category are those in the some college but no degree category. Literally, there's hundreds of thousands of people there. And a lot of those folks are carrying debt. And so how do we look at, again, supporting people to make sure that they have opportunity and access? There's a third bucket here is connectivity, right? Connect the dots. Makerspace CT, the Stanford partnership working on the Good Jobs Challenge. I mean, we've got a lot of people, everyone's swimming in the same direction of the stream here, but we're having a hard time, it seems, kind of connecting some of these dots. And so I think the conversation was really great in that vein, in looking at what higher education, whether it's UConn, CSCU, or whether it's our public education for K-12, SDE, CTEC, plus our nonprofit and community partners, our industry partners, what can we all do together? Okay, I'll stop there. Jeff, did I screw anything up?
Not at all, not at all. The only thing I would add is that the theme that shows up throughout the document in our discussions around bringing together a coalition of the willing It couldn't have come out more strongly in the conversation we had. There's a lot of points. We talked about points, big points, little points. We got to connect them. And I think that that realization and that, that we're going to do this together, not that we have to do it together, but that we can do it together and people wanted to do it together, I think is a real step forward and turning point in how we approach this all.
Yeah.
Encouraging.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Next, turn to Sean Coyne with the sector-based training.
Thank you, Mark. Didn't realize I hadn't unmuted myself. Very robust conversation. Could have gone for a lot longer, I think. There was really, there seemed to be huge alignment amongst everybody about aligning the jobs and businesses, having businesses clearly state their needs out front, and then tailoring the training to those business needs. That came up throughout the 30 minutes of our conversation. It's not part of it's not referenced anywhere in the strategic pillar document right now. There was comments about that the RSPs are helping there, but there's still a ways to go. A lot of conversation about the RSPs, a lot. Maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes about them. And I think there's still a mystery around a lot of the RSPs to the point where it got to having a conversation about do we need to have a communications goal? There is a future, one of the future numbers does talk about 2,000 jobs. I think through the sector, the RSPs that are out there, but would ask you to consider, do we need to do something around a communication strategy with the RSPs? Do we need to think about getting better business participation? I'm in one of the RSPs, the EMA. I think we have a healthy number of members, but we could always use a lot more. That was definitely part of the conversation. And then the last thing that we spent definitely some time on was when you look at the accomplishments that we've had to date, and those are significant accomplishments between Career Connect, the tech dollars that we got through DECD, the largest amount of money in the country. I think we got 20-something million dollars to help with the RSPs. And I'll never forget, like you said, the great work that's continued to go on with the apprenticeship programs. But what about some of the systems that we've had for a while that are out there? There's no mention about like the American Job Centers, the CT hires, that basically has like a list of here's the jobs, here's the employers. We don't talk about them at all. So there was an open question about, is that something that we should also be not losing focus about? So I would say that's it at a super high level. Glad to debrief you or anybody else in more detail if you want to go to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Super, super helpful on all that as well, all the panels. Next, want to turn to Wes Alexander relating to the diversity, equity, inclusion, and access breakout group.
Yep. Also robust discussion. Also probably could have gone over, everybody, good news, big picture as we looked at, foundationally mission, vision, pillars, everybody's on board. We did have some conversations around just making sure we're being really clear about the context of the why for some of the areas that we want to focus in. I think the document, I think the group thinks the document had some of that contained, but had some thoughts and some ideas for some additions to, again, give the context and set the stage, particularly in today's environment. I think it's really important to talk about kind of why it is that these actions are necessary. So I think some other kind of big picture things that came out were, there is a huge component of intersectionality in the kind of DEIA area and in areas that, if it affects one piece of the population, it actually can hit several populations. So trying to make sure that we draw that connection in terms of the work and how it affects and impacts different populations from an intersectionality standpoint came up. We had some conversation around infrastructure and just, really wanting to make sure that we comment on the fact that there are some lapses in just the overall Connecticut infrastructure that lead to troubles in access and transportation, et cetera. I think there's a bit of a process conversation, and Anthony, I'll kind of let him, if he wants to jump in, talk a little bit about that. But just making sure we get the right information from the committees and that we're emphasizing the pieces that we all think are the most important. Again, I think that was the goal of this, and using this time to do that, but maybe allowing some time for some additional eyes to just look at it and say, hey, for example, I'm working on this part of this subcommittee. I want to make sure that this work gets emphasized over that. But overall, I think everybody was good directionally. There were a few kind of just document inconsistencies that I think we've accounted for and want to make sure that we do, including, when we look at our key populations, in one place we kind of reference, people who are refugees and immigrants, and another place we don't. So I think there's just some cleaning up stuff too, but overall direction good. And I think people felt good about the conversation, but I don't want to speak for anybody else if they have any further comments.
Thank you very much, Wes. Next, last but not least, going to talk about data. And Kelly, is that you?
I'm happy to jump in if anyone else would rather. I'm happy to pass the baton too. Okay, I'll take that as I'm it. We had a small group, but a mighty group, and we had a lot of robust discussions around the data. We really looked at the context in the future state, and I think we needed to expand a little bit more on what the future state needs to look at. We talk in the document about developing a single system, where probably the better way to define that is an integrated system, because it might be pretty impossible to have a single system. But if we can maximize the systems that we currently have, like CT hires, and also include the work that has been done on CT hires in that document, which was just, I think, a miss. Sometimes you don't see your nose in front of your face kind of thing when you're close to that work. But really thinking about an integrated system, not only for the measurement of outcomes, but also for a user experience. So we have people that we serve across the state from many different agencies and organizations. And if we could have a repository of their information in a single place, they wouldn't have to give the same information over and over again. And every agency wouldn't have to collect the same data over and over again, that we could build a system that would provide a more seamless user experience is also as important, maybe more important than an integrated system that we can really measure the outcomes of. And so we had, some conversation around how best to kind of word some of those things. And we also had a pretty good discussion right at the end around how do we measure success, because this is a work in progress. It's going to take time and investment to getting to. So how do we measure that we're actually making progress to that? So if we can clearly define what we want the future state to look like, then we can, and we can then look at what are the milestones that are going to get us there. And then we can start measuring our success to those milestones along the journey. If I didn't talk about everything, if anybody wants to jump in, you're more than welcome to. Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. I just wanted to kind of, first of all, kind of thank the kind of committee chairs in terms of, leading these breakouts. I mean, I'm really excited about the fact that we had business leaders from Travelers, Electric Boat, Stanley Black & Decker, Indeed, Infosys, and education leaders of the CSCU, the State Department of Education. We had Kelly obviously leading, from a workforce standpoint. I mean, that's a pretty, positive statement of kind of we're all rowing together to try to make this happen. In fact, one of the key themes, because I jumped around and listened to a few of these different breakouts, is there were people kind of pointing out that there are people left out of the boat, and we need to make sure they're on the boat, including the adult education system. The CTECs obviously play a really critical role. The professional schools overseen by the Office of Higher Education, obviously the private colleges and universities, and a lot of obviously the nonprofit-oriented programs. And then even kind of, the core infrastructure, the workforce boards, the American Job Centers, the, current assets that we have. So the good news is that people are really seeing the value of redoubling our efforts with regard to collaboration, because that's the only way we're going to build this kind of ecosystem. Another key point that I heard was funding. That especially from the educational systems, they want to really align their educational systems with workforce, but that's going to take some resources that, today we don't have. And so we really do have to focus on how are we going to make that happen. And I was really excited to hear, on the, from the business community on the, industry leadership of a desire to kind of set some pretty aggressive goals around the RSPs, around the regional sector partnerships. One of the leaders of one of the manufacturing RSPs saying, we should expect penetration of 25% of all the manufacturers in their, in the various regions on the manufacturing RSP. So that excites me because we're basically saying, this is the vehicle where we can make real progress. We're not yet there. That, with the Good Jobs Challenge and such, yes, there's resources, but we do need to do a much better job, at least from a communication standpoint, around the work going on in the RSPs. And obviously, we need to kind of make them stronger. So I think a lot of, and there was obviously a lot of very specific feedback that we heard in these different groups that we're going to factor into the plan. So I want to thank everybody for really strong participation today in all this. And it doesn't just end with today either. The plan is available. We want to encourage you to go online and be willing to kind of, send us an email, provide us more detailed feedback on any of these items. And you can see here on the screen kind of where to go to be able to provide that feedback on the workforce strategic plan. The next step there is we're going to be incorporating this feedback and doing some kind of content changes. And then it's going to go to kind of the public relations firm that we're working with to really get the graphics and language and visualization of it proper. And then we will post that also for comments, and then we'll have an e-vote on that strategic plan. But we do see it as a living, breathing document, meaning that, we're not going to probably go another 4 years without revising it. We're going to kind of continue to learn and continue to kind of make it better. There's also opportunity, as Kelly described earlier, to provide input on the WIOA plan. I know it's a very long plan to look at, over 300 pages, but please feel free to, provide that. Also want to remind you about the Workforce Summit, April 16th at the AquaTurf. This is shaping up to be a really fabulous day. We have a keynote speaker, Blake Moray, the CEO of Rockwell Automation, who's one of the national leaders on workforce development, part of the Business Roundtable work, leads that for his geography. He'll be the keynote speaker. We have tremendous panels focusing on opportunity youth and other populations. The theme of the day, as Kelly talked about, is hidden talent, which is really an issue for every single business and employer in the state, as well as obviously for job seekers. So it's going to be a great day. Everybody is kind of urged to attend. I want to thank you all today for your participation. I know that it takes a lot of time, these meetings, but it's really, really important to have you participate and to be attending these meetings So we look for your continued involvement going forward in terms of workforce development. We're going to do more work at the committee levels. There will be other areas where you can also potentially participate. And then, of course, a lot of the work happens at the local level, happens through the participating in the regional sector partnerships, happens through working with educational institutions and working with nonprofits and specific, initiatives in your area. And that's what it all adds up to a lot. So thank you again, and really appreciate your participation today. Have a great day, great night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark and Kelly. Great meeting.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.